Waakye and kenkey used to be the most popular street foods in Ghana. And in the early 2000s, fried rice overtook waakye and kenkey to become Ghana's most popular fast food. How did the Chinese dish overtake our local staples and get so popular in our culture? I'm about to break down the conditions that led to the popularization of check in Ghana. Before I do that, my name is Nenebi Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer who lives in the US. This is my weekly private sector chronicle, AfriCapitalism. If you enjoy intellectual conversations, subscribe to this channel. So I'll start with this. One of my favorite sayings is, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Sometimes you have a good idea, you have good intentions for your idea, you implemented your idea, and then you have a bad outcome. I'll give you an example. So, we used to cut down trees to create paper and use the papers to create paper bag. So, paper bag used to be very, very popular. And then we realized that cutting down trees is bad for the environment and, climate change and whatnot. So, someone came with an idea. Let's use the rubber we get from the rubber tree to create plastic and use the plastic to create plastic bags. So plastic bags were supposed to be good for the environment and also good for climate change. And then later we found out that plastic took a longer time to decompose, so they linger on the environment for very long. And even when they are decomposing, they create more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So bad for the environment, bad for climate change. So in trying to solve one problem, we created another. That is the dilemma of human existence, right? So last week, I started this conversation by talking about how the World Bank and IMF trade liberalization in Ghana led to the chicken from America coming into Ghana in high quantities, and how the American chicken coming to Ghana led to the destruction of Ghana's poultry industry. I'll put the video up here, and if you're interested in that conversation, you can watch it. But today, we are going to talk about maybe the positive aspect of American chicken in Ghana. I started with the bad because I don't want to just glorify, something that is not Ghanaian. But even about the trade liberalization itself, Ghanaian leaders love blaming World Bank and IMF for how our country turned out. But Ghana didn't go to World Bank and IMF because we had the best economic brains who were doing the best job, and then we needed somebody to come and mess it up. So we went to IMF. No. Our leaders were messing up the country, and then we went to IMF for a bailout, and they came with ideas on how they think we should run the country. Nobody's going to give you money and it won't come with conditionalities. You understand this? So let me give you an example. There was a time when Ghana education used to be almost entirely free. So if you were in secondary school in Ghana in the maybe 1950s all the way to the late 80s, government subsidized your boarding fee and government subsidized your feeding in school. The subsidization of secondary education boarding house in Ghana was reduced by IMF and World Bank because Ghana didn't have the money to sustain it. But also, the reduction in the subsidization of secondary education in Ghana helped Ghana because before that, we were concentrating all the money in subsidizing the schools that already existed. So when we stopped subsidizing the schools, we used the money to create more and more schools. That is why in the 90s and early 2000s, our leaders were bragging about building more classrooms. There were no more schools under trees, So that is a positive thing that came from the IMF reducing subsidization in Ghana. But IMF was not the first person to tell Ghanaians to stop subsidizing feeding in schools. Actually, the first Ghanaian leader to cut feeding in schools was Dr. Buzia. So he even did it for a bad reason. So students in Ghana loved Kwame Nkrumah. We will always love Nkrumah as Ghanaians. And when Buzia was president, Ghanaian students were protesting that Nkrumah was in exile in Guinea. They should bring Nkrumah back to Ghana just to come and live in Ghana. They were not asking Nkrumah to become president. They just wanted Nkrumah to come and live in Ghana. And Buzia got angry with the university students in Ghana for wanting our former president to come back to the country. So he cut the university feeding program Ghana had. So just like that, it was a punishing tool for university students protesting. So World Bank and IMF cut subsidization because they wanted to help our economy. Dr. Buzia did it because he wanted to punish students. So my view is we always had the most callous, most unimaginative leaders in Ghana. And so blaming IMF and World Bank for our problems doesn't cut it for me. Let's move forward and go back to talking about rice. So Chinese have always lived in Ghana since the 1940s. It is unclear how Chinese started coming to Ghana, but it is possible that Kwame Nkrumah's relationship with China increased the presence of Chinese in Ghana. So it is believed that we've had Chinese restaurants in Ghana all the way from the 1950s. But the Chinese restaurants were servicing Chinese and other expatriates. Ghanaians were not eating in Chinese restaurants in the 1900s. But in the year 1991, a restaurant called Papaye was founded. And Papaye found a way to market Chinese dishes to Ghanaians. So, fried rice is a Chinese dish that was being sold in Chinese restaurants. Coleslaw was also sold in these Chinese restaurants. What Papaye did was put Ghanaian spices into fried rice to make fried rice taste more Ghanaians. Added shito to fried rice to make Ghanaians accept fried rice more. So, in the 90s, kenkey used to be sold with shito. Ghanaians love shito. So, by adding shito to fried rice and putting Ghanaian spices in the fried rice itself, we created fried rice that Ghanaians will love. Then came On the Run, another Lebanese owned restaurant. Papaye is a Lebanese owned restaurant. So the Lebanese owned restaurants, Papaye and On the Run, created fried rice that Ghanaians will love. And the fried rice had more than one color. It had a typical Ghanaian fried rice will have carrots in it. It will have the rice in it. It will have cabbage or something else in it. So it had more than one color. So that is why we called it check check. Check check was a uniform we had in Ghana where the uniform had more than one color. It had mostly check check uniform will have two colors, right? It was either white and red or white and purple or white and whatever color. So the fried rice looked like the uniform. That is why we called it check check. And so check check was gaining more and more popularity in Ghana in the 90s. It was something that people would take their girlfriends from University of Ghana and other Papaye started in Accra. So students of University of Ghana would take their girlfriends to Papaye. It was a big deal to take your girl to Papaye in Ghana in the 90s. I wasn't there, but that's what I heard. And along came On the Run. On the Run, to even add credence to the university student, was situated around the Legon campus, right? So now it was closer to students, so it was competitive for Papaye. So people started eating more and more fried rice. University students are usually more experimental with, their taste buds and everything. University is where you make all the mistakes in your life. You try new things and then find out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So if you are currently in the university, be adventurous. Try new things. So um fried rice became a thing around university students. But university students finished school and then became part of the community and then became family men, started taking their kids to Papaye and on the run. So it was getting more and more popular. But what changed everything was in the year 2000s, in the 2000s, maybe late 90s, Ghana signed some economic deals with China. We signed some economic deals with the US. We signed some economic deals with other Asian countries. And as part of those economic deals, they had a chance to start exporting stuff from their country to Ghana. Ghana had a chance to start exporting stuff from our country to those countries, right? And so cheaper rice started coming to Ghana. Now, waakye was popular in Ghana because waakye is made with brown rice, and brown rice is grown in Ghana. But when this Chinese rice started coming to Ghana, and either Thailand rice and Vietnamese rice started coming to Ghana, they were cheaper, but more importantly, they were jasmine rice that could be used to make fried rice. And so more and more people started falling in love with jasmine rice. And that is where the story got more interesting. In the late 90s, there was a company in Ghana. I couldn't find its full name online, but I remember it because there was an advert about it on TV. It was called, is it Plastic and Paper Limited or something like that? And they started advertising packs, what we call in Ghana takeaway packs. In America, they call it to-go packs. So the takeaway packs was started advertised on TV. And if you watch the adverts that they did in the 90s, there was this guy who wanted to go and buy a waakye. And the waakye was put in the leaf like it used to be. And the leaf tore and then the food, spilled on his attire he was going to work. And so the waakye seller now started putting the waakye in the pack. And the advert said, now you're calling high tech. Now high tech is a different advert. But yeah, that advert was creating the idea of serving food in packs in Ghana. So now we had the rice coming in from Asia. We have the packs. And then chicken also. Last week I explained how chicken got here. So people who are Ghanaians were industrious. They saw a market for this. And what created the market? Let's talk about the market first. So, rapid urbanization was happening in Ghana in the 90s. It was reported that at least 5% of young people were moving from rural areas to urban areas like Accra and Kumasi each year. So each year, 5% of people were moving to Accra and Kumasi, to the extent that most young people in Ghana started living in the urban areas. And one problem with urbanization is work culture. If you move to an urban area, you go work tire. So people were having less and less time to cook. So there is this thing that was popular in the 90s and 2000s, maybe still popular today. If you were a young man who wanted to get married in the late 90s or early 2000s, your parents will advise you to marry a woman from the village. Why is that? The idea was that people in urban cities couldn't cook, or women in Accra and Kumasi couldn't cook. That is because women in Accra and Kumasi had a harder time learning how to cook. So if you go to rural places in Ghana, even till date, I used to travel around a lot, you will notice that villages in Ghana are hard to find kenkey and waakye at. Street food don't get sold in villages in Ghana. Street food is sold in urban areas because in villages, everybody is sort of expected to cook. But in the urban areas, people can't cook because they go to work from morning to night. By the time they come back from work, they are tired. So even those who cooked, those women who cooked, wouldn't have the time to teach their daughters and sons how to cook. And so the likelihood of somebody living in the big city not knowing how to cook was higher than in the rural areas, even though that's not necessarily the case across board, right? I grew up in a big city. I can cook. My sister can cook. You understand? So the conditions was that people needed fast food or people needed street food. Waakye and kenkey were not cutting it because waakye and kenkey take a long time to make. Fried rice took a shorter time to make. And so more and more stores that sold fried rice started springing up in urban places. That is what created check check. The fact that there was a market for it and it was easier to make, people started making it. The park were there. So Papaye and on the run, you had to go and get the food. You could sit there and eat. But the check check joints, as we call them, you didn't necessarily have to sit there. You just get the food in your park, go to your house and eat. And it was a cool date thing to do. Now you could walk with your date from your house to the check check joint, stand in line, funny stuff happening at the check check line, get the check check, walk back home. You know, it's all part of the romance. So that is what created check check, the culture of urbanization. Simple. That's all I wanted to share with you. Next week, we're going to get deeper into the hustle culture that led to check check being created. Ghanaians are a very industrious group of hustlers, but we are going to focus on a special type of Ghanaian hustlers, market women. Yeah. On AfriCapitalism, I want to talk about the authentic Ghanaian private sector story. In future, we'll get into other areas, maybe AI and the rest. But for now, I want to focus on indigenous Ghanaian hustle stories. I'll talk to you later.